At certain points in history, a man comes along to change the world, and sometimes does. Not just a man, but a hero. George W. Bush, American hero.
The most important tasks of a democracy are done by everyone. I will live and lead by these principles, to advance my convictions with civility, to pursue the public interest with courage, to speak for greater justice and compassion, to call for responsibility and try to live it as well. In all these ways, I will bring the values of our history to the care of our times.
Inaugurated in 2001, George Bush's popularity peaked at the commencement of his presidency. Perhaps most known for his leadership, especially during times of great struggle, Bush valiantly led the United States into the 21st century, fearlessly facing down social, economic, domestic, and foreign perils. While in office, Bush accomplished groundbreaking political reform, even when faced with the worst terrorist attack in American history a mere 8 months into his presidency.
Now, although the United States was completely competent in this conflict, Bush brilliantly devised the notion of calling upon our allies to determine our true friends. This effectively exposed the French as being the pussies they are. He always had a devil-may-care sort of attitude, even as a small child. Maybe this was because he was the first of 6 children, or maybe it was just a trait of the family. Although he was raised in Texas, he was actually born in suburban New Haven, Connecticut. Until his historic union with Dick Cheney, Mr. Bush was famous for never being able to tell a lie. This became a bit of a problem early on in his life, when he immediately admitted to his multiple stashes of cocaine hidden in a cherry tree. George W. Bush first made a name for himself in American history during the Revolutionary War with the British. There was, in fact, a famous portrait of him crossing the Delaware River, in which his army defeated the British encampment. George Bush, Mr. Bush, is often confused with the other George relevant in American history, much less influential, George Washington. But this is a common trivial mistake made by amateur historians. In more recent history, George Bush was extremely instrumental during World War II in the Battle of the Pacific. In fact, upon the bombing of Pearl Harbor, he swam unassisted from the site of the bombing all the way to the island of Iwo Jima, just in time for the Battle of Operation Detachment. In fact, there's a famous photograph of his involvement of the capture of the airfields on the island. It's this very iconic piece of literature in American history. Although it is conventional wisdom that George W. Bush evaded military service during the Vietnam War, this is merely a misconception of what manner of service he performed. He instead was conducting internal affair research in Tiananmen Square at the time. This is perhaps the most prominent example of containment foreign policy strategy and the following through of the Marshall Plan in American history. George W. Bush was quite literally standing up to the military forces of communism.
And this much is certain. No terrorist network will gain weapons of mass destruction from the Iraqi regime, because the regime is no more.